And more now on the FBI warning to utility companies nationwide about the threat of a cyber attack on water infrastructure. Authorities in Minnesota are investigating a series of cyber attacks targeting dozens of water plants in the state. And preliminary findings suggest Iran may have been behind these attacks. Joining us now is Josh Corman, a cybersecurity expert with the Institute for Security and Technology. Josh, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
And let's just start with that headline today. You know, when it comes to something like this, how seriously should we be taking this warning?
This is some nightmare fuel for my industry and those in the know. It may sound like a typical hack or maybe a ransomware, but there are adversaries who want to steal information or extract money. There are others that want to disrupt and destroy. And if this is what we all suspect in Iranian affiliated hackers, they're more in the disrupt and destroy category.
Yeah, and when it comes to water infrastructure, you know, obviously that's a life source, but there's a lot of infrastructure that in the U.S. is seemingly out there in the open. What are some of the other critical areas that those in your industry would be watching right now?
So when you add software to something, you make it vulnerable. And when you connect it to the internet, you make it exposed. So to quote Stan Lee, with great connectivity comes great responsibility. And we've reaped the benefits of internet connected infrastructure, but now we have predators interested in also leveraging that access. So in the case of water, it's one of our most exposed and least prepared for these types of predators. Obviously, you can imagine the loss of water pressure or turning the faucet on and nothing coming out as a direct threat, but it's also a critical foundational dependency for other things. No water is no toilets, no water is no fire hydrants to put out fires, no water is no hospitals in 2 to 4 hours, maybe even less in the summer months where we need AC. So we are quite concerned about how prone we are. We're prey, and now we have a predator actively stalking these facilities in both Minnesota and several other states.
Yikes, can really have some critical impacts there when you look at it that way. You know, there have been previous reports about China targeting U.S. water systems. Now we're talking about Iran. Does that change the threat level given the current conflict?
Yeah, the nonprofit project that I'm driving was a response to Volt Typhoon, which is the People's Liberation Army of China, setting the groundwork for a potential conflict with Taiwan as early as 2027, more likely in 28. The fact that we're in an active conflict with Iran now, that's getting hotter and colder depending on the week and the event, really makes this a clear and present danger. So we tend to think of warfare as something that happens over there or outside the borders of our country. But in the area of hyperconnectivity, hybrid conflict means we may see pushback or retaliation on civilian infrastructure.
Something very scary, you know, given that sometimes I think people watch a conflict playing out overseas and think, oh, there's nothing I need to worry about. But this is in real time and happening right before our eyes. Us here in D.C., would we be more prone to an attack given the proximity to the country's leaders? I think that's something most people in the region usually ask themselves.
Yeah, it's a fair question. And there's different ways we tend to look at these hybrid threats. Most of them we look at defense industrial base or military bases or big cities. In the case of both the Volt Typhoon threat from China and this one, panicking civilians is part of the mission objective. So, small town America like Littleton, Massachusetts has 10,000 people, no military presence, no industrial, and yet they are one of the victims of pre-reconnaissance from China. So I would say you're probably at equal risk in the Beltway, but you also face other threats that prefer the capital for its symbolism.
So no one size fits all really in this. There's definitely strategy at play. Josh, I want to talk about some of your work a little bit more because in May, you testified before a House committee on cyber threats facing U.S. water infrastructure. This is just a couple months ago. You're talking about this. Explain for us more the role that your organization plays in helping better prepare the country for this new realm of warfare.
Sure. We have some great coverage from that and even some videos that make it more digestible for everyday Americans. But I was really pleased to see a bipartisan investigation as to where are we over-dependent on undependable connectivity in water. And while the initial focus was how do we better protect the cybersecurity of water facilities, I think they're coming to appreciate that no water has cascading effects on other industries like manufacturing, data centers, dialysis clinics, hospitals. So it was an important hearing that surfaced the interdependence we have on water, just how unprepared we are. But the good news is, I said we are prone, we are prey, but we are not powerless. And we outlined very effective, familiar, affordable engineering mitigations that can mean no matter who tries to attack our water infrastructure, we can still protect our citizens in spite of that. So we're trying to accelerate available familiar mitigations, and we have monies to do free assistance to make sure at least our hospital towns are more resilient to disruption and destruction.
And
it's at youtube7.org if you want help or resources.
Wonderful resource there. Thank you for sharing. And, that begs the question, what can we do to better protect ourselves from attacks of this nature? And you're talking about some of the easy mitigations. I read one report that there are like manual systems we could go back to. If this is a smart cyber attack, is that the opposite of it? What are some of the ways that you're helping to implement as far as a preventative measure here?
Well, to circle back, with great connectivity comes great responsibility. We added connectivity because of the perceived benefits. I think we're starting to realize the price tag, the cost is much higher than we banked on. So in some cases, if you're not yet connected with your water facility, please stay that way until you know you can do it safely. If you've recently connected and realize if you can't protect it, maybe disconnect it. We're encouraging downtime drills to see if you can run a day without internet or without your fancy connected things. And in some cases, people cannot. And there's increasingly free resources. CISA.gov has a CI Fortify initiative to look at practicing if you can operate under austere or less than pleasant circumstances. So for plants, I think it's looking at, is your dependence dependable? And what are the highest consequence failures you might want to mitigate? For individual citizens, we can take pressure off of our facilities by making sure we have 3 or so weeks of water and food stock on hand in case there's a disruption. I live in the Northeast. We have a blizzard, we bust out the generator, right? We expect some disruption. And we're in an era where I think we've taken water for granted and may need to have reasonable, prudent mitigations in place to make sure our family has what they need.
Just like a fire drill in elementary school, practicing the worst case scenario in really what is a new, different age that we are now all entering as a country. Josh Corman, cybersecurity expert with the Institute for Security and Technology. So interesting to talk with you. Thank you again for taking the time to join us this afternoon.
Be well.
All right, take care, and a warm but pleasant Friday out there for us. Meteorologist Steve Rudin is back, tracking some gradual change on the way in our forecast.